Hello everyone, in this video I am going to be reviewing the Restoration period of theater. So from the transition from the Renaissance period to the Restoration period, there was a time for 12 years when the Puritans came into power, and in 1642 they actually made theater illegal. So this is the leader of the Puritans, and he's preaching to them. And in the activity that we did in class today, we looked at the law that the Puritans passed to make it illegal, make theater illegal. So the law says, public plays do not seem right during these difficult times when we should be exercising sad solemnity. Public stage plays are displays of pleasure, too commonly expressing lascivious mirth. It is therefore thought fit by the lords in this Parliament that while these sad causes and times of humiliation do continue, public stage plays shall stop and be forbidden. So during this time, there was a civil war happening, and the Puritan Parliament thought that because this war was going on, that everybody should be sad and thinking about it, and that stage plays were too fun, they were too happy, and they didn't want people taking pleasure in things when so much was going on in the world. So group 1 looked up the word lascivious, and that means characterized by or inclined to sexual lust or lewdness. So basically they thought that the plays were inappropriate for the time. And they also used the word mirth. And this group found that mirth means happiness or gaiety, especially accompanied by laughter. So the Puritans outlawed plays because they saw the Renaissance theater as a negative experience because it was too happy. So they thought that during this time of civil war, it was inappropriate to be taking pleasure in something like a play. So they made them illegal. So then, in 1660, Charles II was restored to the throne. So the Puritans were no longer in charge. This guy, Charles II, was put in charge once again. And this time period is called the Restoration because Charles II was restored to the throne. And that was in 1660. And one of the first things that he did when he was restored to the throne is that he made theater legal again. Not only that, but he actually made it so that women were able to act in the plays. If you remember during the Renaissance period, whenever there was like a female character in a play, they actually had a young boy play the part instead of a woman. So when Charles II came back, he had been abroad during the time the Puritans were in charge. And in Group 2's paragraph, we see that it says, King Charles was restored to the throne. He very quickly made theaters legal again. During his time abroad, while the Puritans were in charge, the king saw French, Italian, and Spanish women performing in public theaters. So he saw that, he liked it, and he decided to lift the ban on English women acting on public stages. So now women can act in the plays. Group 2 also looked at what the theaters were like during the Restoration period. And it says here, unlike the open-air theaters of Shakespeare's era, if you remember, the theaters had open roofs during Shakespeare's time, and they weren't completely inside, but they weren't completely outside. But during the Restoration era, they were moved indoors. And Group 2 looked up this picture of a proscenium stage, which is the kind of theater that would have been used during the Restoration period. I have another picture here of what a theater would have looked like. So you have people sitting here in what they called the pit, and then other people up here in the gallery area, and then there's the boxes, which were the most expensive seats right here on the stage. And if you look, because there was no electricity yet, they had these like big chandeliers hanging down that had candles that lit up the area during the performances. So during the Restoration, this group found in their paragraph that these sets were large moving stage pieces. So there are these big, huge sets that shocked the audiences when they watched the scenes change. If you look in this picture, it looks like they actually have like trees to make this look like the woods. So the set pieces were very elaborate, very detailed, and huge. We talked about how Charles II lifted the ban on English women acting, and so they began to act, and how the theaters were moved inside. So, group three looked at what the two major genres were, what the plays were about during the Restoration period. And the two major genres, well, that's hard to say, are heroic tragedy and satirical comedy. So, heroic tragedies is when the main character of a play is very heroic, they have good morals, and they're admirable. People look up to these characters. And usually the themes of the plays are love, honor, and courage. So this group, their example of a heroic tragedy that we see in a movie today was the Titanic, because in that movie, Jack sacrifices himself for Rose. He's very heroic, and there's definitely the theme of love and courage and honor in that movie if you've ever seen it. So that would be a heroic tragedy that we see today. Satirical plays were the very common comedy. And so satire is a way of like making fun of something, usually using irony. So these plays made fun of the upper class people, and they usually had some inappropriate, sexually suggestive language. The Puritans had outlawed this language for those 12 years, and so the people were very excited to go see plays like this because they hadn't been able to for so long. So a lot of the times they wanted to go see something funny that would make them laugh and was inappropriate because during the time that the Puritans were in charge, they couldn't indulge in anything like that. So we talked about how the upper class people liked to go to these plays, even though they made fun of them because they were inappropriate and it still made them laugh. A lot of the times, these comedies showed love affairs and some other scandal, and a lot of the times they actually included real and current gossip that was actually in the lives of the real live people who were coming to see these plays. So the big things with Restoration comedy to remember, or with the Restoration to remember, is that it was from 1660 to 1690. And it's called the Restoration because Charles II was restored to the throne. Theaters were moved inside, and the sets were very, very elaborate and big. And then there was two big genres of plays, the heroic tragedy and the satirical comedy.